Introducing YouTube memberships, a fun way to support the channel while getting some exclusive perks. Click the join button to become a member now and get benefits like badges next to your name on videos, behind-the-scenes photos, advantages during the live trivia game, discounts on merchandise, private one-on-one video chats, the ability to request future video topics, and exclusive 8 to 10 minute videos on the history of the NFL. And now, on with our feature presentation. November 19, 2023. It's week 11 of the NFL season, and we've got an NFC West rivalry game on our hands over at SoFi Stadium between the Seattle Seahawks and the Los Angeles Rams. This is a very big game for both of these teams, and I do not say that lightly. For the Rams, after beating the Seahawks on the opening week of the season, they are in a massive skid, having lost 3 straight games and having not won in over a month. Lose this game to Seattle, and any chance you have at making the playoffs is just about finished. As for Seattle, win this game, and you're 3 up on a playoff spot with 7 to play, which should put you in the clear barring anything crazy. Lose this game, however, and with a brutal stretch of games coming up over the next 4, having to face San Francisco twice, Dallas, and Philadelphia, things definitely look a bit dire, especially since this would count as a division loss. The last thing you can afford here is to do something stupid, which, we'll get to that, don't you worry. As for how this game was going, the Seahawks were playing lights out in the first half, as on their first 3 drives, they score all 3 times, and led it 13-0 with roughly 5 minutes left. You've got a 2-possession lead, you're moving the ball at will, and your defense is playing very well. Gotta love it. Now the bad news for the Seahawks is that this does not last, as the Rams move the ball and churn a fair amount of clock by doing so, eventually getting it all the way down to Seattle's 8-yard line with 1:09 left. The bad news is that, obviously, the Rams are in scoring position and are in a goal-to-go spot. The good news, though, if there is anything good from this situation, is that there are a very nice 69 seconds left, and you have 2 timeouts. You can easily call timeouts to get the ball back, with plenty of time to score and answer. It's not like this is going to be the last possession of the half for either team. You're going to get the ball back with time, barring anything crazy, so long as you use your timeouts properly. First down, and Royce Freeman gets a gain of 3 yards with the clock running. Alright, Seattle, call timeout. Why are you calling timeout? Why are you calling time?
Now a timeout is taken. And it's the Seahawks who do it. They have 1 left.
Oh, never mind. False alarm. Force of habit. My bad. I gotta give Pete Carroll credit here. He actually knew the situation. Good for him. So he knew that the best thing here for your team is to stop the clock and get the ball back with a lot of time. But now you've got 1 timeout to work with. So if the Rams have another play that runs time off the clock, you can burn here and continue that strategy that makes a ton of sense. Second down, and after a 1-yard gain by Demarcus Robinson, the clock is running. Alright, Seattle, you know what to do. Burn that final timeout. Wait a second, why are you not calling timeout? You called it before. You had the right idea. There was nothing that happened to change that philosophy. You're wasting valuable seconds. You're potentially wasting a possession to get the ball back and do something on offense. Pete Carroll, the clock is ticking. You're just standing there without taking a timeout. You have a chance to get the ball back and do something, and here you are, wasting that because you can't call a timeout. Why are you not taking a timeout? Why are you not calling a timeout?
With 12 seconds left. Interesting that Pete Carroll used a timeout after the previous play, but not here.
Yeah, it does. It's kind of a head scratcher.
Well, that's just great. Now you have 12 seconds left instead of just under a minute. Now, you won't get that extra possession. And just out of curiosity, when you do get the ball back after the Rams inevitably score, let me guess, instead of having time to run plays and have an actual possession, you just have to take a knee because you don't have enough time to do anything, right?
Allow them to go down the football field.
Seahawks will take a knee, and that is how the first half comes to an end.
I thought so. Welcome to Dumb Decisions. Before I break down what happened here, this whole series is about taking an in-depth look at decisions made during games that were clearly awful from the start. this isn't something to look bad in hindsight. Rather, this is something to look awful almost immediately. These are moves where your gut instinct tells you right away that there is no way this can possibly work. And sure enough, your gut instinct was smarter than that of an NFL head coach. And for this one, we're taking a look at the mind of Seattle Seahawks head coach Pete Carroll. This is, amazingly enough, the first time that he's been on this segment. And no, the Super Bowl 49 episode is never coming, because I don't even know what angle I could take on that moment that hasn't been done already. Carroll got a ton of scrutiny for how he handled this entire game, with two major blunders in the eyes of many. We'll talk about the management in the second half with the run play that led to the missed field goal in a later video, because I actually didn't have a problem with that. So you'll be seeing an in-defense sub video coming out tomorrow on that decision. So keep your eyes peeled for that. But this clock management here at the end of the first half? Not burning the timeout for no real reason at all? Yeah, I've got nothing. Absolutely, positively nothing as to why this was the case. So with that being said, let's take a look at why not calling a timeout with 53 seconds left and the Rams on the 4-yard line is a really bad idea. Let's say you decide to call a timeout with 53 seconds left. What does this mean? Well, the goal of football, at the end of the day, is to win the game. You win the game by scoring more points than your opponent, and you have the chance to score points by getting possessions, and by getting a hold on the football, since, let's be honest, you can't exactly win a game if you don't touch the ball. And this means that if you have the opportunity to get a quality possession and do something with it, barring anything insane, you do it, especially if it's the first half of the game. If you call the timeout with 53 seconds, that means that if the Rams score on their next play, you're getting the ball back with about 47 seconds left. Assuming a touchback, this means you're getting the ball at the 25-yard line, needing to go about 35 yards in plenty of time, giving yourself a chance to score on a day where you have 3 drives in the first half so far, and you literally scored on all 3 of them. Seriously, you've been slicing and dicing the Rams defense all day long, and on your 3 drives, you not only scored all 3 times, but amassed 193 yards, or over 64 yards per drive, which is an insane average. Based on how the game was going, if you get it back with 47 seconds left, you have a good chance of getting into field goal range and doing something here. This is not one of those situations where if you get it back, you just go into the half and regroup, and you don't take any chances whatsoever with your offense. You are moving the ball at will. So if you call a timeout, if the Rams score a touchdown, or they get a field goal on a play where the clock does not run on 3rd down, you get a chance to score and possibly make it a 2-score game again, and give yourself some momentum going into the halftime break. If you don't call the timeout, however, time is not an issue for the Rams. They have all of their timeouts. They have 53 seconds, and with a play clock at 40 seconds, it is literally impossible for them to run out of time. So it's not like there's any strategy with not wanting to overplay your hands so much to get the ball back that you allow the Rams to run their offense and do their thing. The Rams, barring a turnover or an absolute shank of a field goal, are guaranteed to score. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Which is the same exact scenario as what you're in the middle of without the timeout. So let's be honest. Which gives you a better chance at scoring points, extending your lead, and therefore winning the game? The Rams scoring and you having 47 seconds or so to drive down the field and get points? Or the Rams scoring and you now have no time to drive down the field? Which number would you rather have on your side? 47 or 10? Yeah, you want the one that gives you more time to work with. Unless you're that scared of possibly turning it over if you get the ball back, that you don't want the Rams to potentially score twice. But you can't think like that on a day where you've scored on every drive thus far. You cannot play scared if that's your reasoning. Just to recap where we are right now, because we've still got a lot more to go. Option 1, by calling a timeout, gives you the ball back after the Rams inevitably score. Option 2, by not calling a timeout, does not give you the ball back after the Rams inevitably score. From a pros and cons standpoint, it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't add up. The pro of taking the timeout is you get the ball back, a chance to score again with plenty of time and not a ton of distance to go, and a chance to get points, which is the name of the game. The con of taking the timeout is if you allow the Rams to score, you get the ball back, and then you turn it over. But again, you can't think like that when you score on every drive. It's like being scared of passing the ball to Steph Curry on a three-pointer because he could airball it. Even if you're thinking so far ahead where you get the ball back and go 3 and out, if those 3 plays take 20 seconds and then you punt the ball away, the Rams are going to be pinned inside their own 20 or 30 yard line with 15 seconds or thereabout after the punt, that nothing's going to happen. So there's no real threat of the Rams scoring more points than they would get on this drive as it is. Because of that, the worst case scenario in this option, which is you don't score points and the Rams score on their current drive, whether that's a field goal or a touchdown, is the same exact thing as the worst case scenario in the option where you don't take the timeout, where you don't score points and the Rams score on their current drive. Since again, time is literally no issue at all for the Rams. Meanwhile, the best case scenario by taking the timeout is that you score, and the best case scenario by not taking the timeout is the exact same as the worst case scenario in the option where you take the timeout. Does that make sense? Does anything about that philosophy make any sense at all? You have 2 options, and one option gives you a chance to score, and the other option gives you no chance to score. But both options pose the same risk. So why would you not do the option that gives you a chance to score? And what makes this situation all the more crazy is that Pete Carroll had the right idea at first. Seriously, Pete Carroll, the man you've been watching, knew what he was doing. Because after the first down play, he decided to burn a timeout to stop the clock. He knew that in this situation, he wanted to get the ball back. He had plenty of time to work with, that the Rams were running out of real estate to hold on to the football, so by default, they'd have to give it back to the Seahawks anyways before the end of the half, just by virtue of where they were on the field on the play clock, and by calling a timeout, he could make sure that his team had a good chance at scoring. And then, he changed his mind? Like, honestly, what am I missing here? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. He had the right idea. Nothing about the situation changed. And then, he changed his mind for some bizarre reason that we don't know the answer to, because it wasn't talked about in the post-game press conference. Even though this changing of philosophy 30 seconds later negatively impacted him and his team, and didn't seem to make any logical sense at all. Either way, it's safe to say that nothing about what Pete Carroll did here from a clock management standpoint made any sense whatsoever. This game between these 2 teams behind me right here was filled with many questionable decisions galore. Seriously, if you wanted a game where there were tons of decisions that you could scratch your head at second guess, this was the game right here. Now, some of them in my mind were a bit overblown. For example, I didn't have a problem with Sean McVay calling a passing play down by the goal line, down by 2 points with about 2 minutes left. I had no problem with that because the Seahawks still had a timeout to burn. So clock-wise, it didn't really make a difference. Conversely, I also had no problem with the Seahawks with their running play at the very end of the game. I had no problem with that. You're in field goal range already as it is for Jason Myers, and there will be an in-defense sub video on that tomorrow. But this decision, yeah, this was heavily scrutinized and for the right reasons. Because this decision by Pete Carroll with the timeout management, especially when he called the timeout before, made no logical sense whatsoever. And it ended up potentially costing the Seahawks in a big-time way on this day. So what do we learn from all of this? If you're presented with 2 options, and option 1 and option 2 have the same exact worst-case scenario, but option 1 gives you a chance to score, then take the first option, especially when that is highly realistic. If you have a strategy and you have the right idea and it's working, as evidenced by the first time out, then why you would just change it midway through when they're playing right into your hands, I have no clue. But don't do that. As Michael Jordan would say, if you're thinking about that, stop that. Get some help. If you are moving the ball well, and you need to score points, and you have a chance to continue to do that, then take that. Especially when there is no difference on the negative side between that and the option that doesn't allow you to do that. And if you have timeouts and it makes logical sense to use them, then for the love of God, use them. You can't carry them over to the second half. You can't exchange them for a prize at Dave & Buster's. You might as well use the timeouts, especially when not using them can cost your team in a big-time way, as we saw here. Because when all of these elements are in play, you can't exactly be surprised when this play backfires. Talk about a dumb decision. Get your official Jaguar Gear 9 merchandise by going to jj9shop.com, and be sure to like and subscribe, as it really helps the channel out a lot. Join me every Wednesday night where we'll play NFL Trivia for cash prizes at 9 p.m. Eastern over on Twitch. To learn more about the history of college football, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 8. To learn more about the history of Major League Baseball, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 7. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.